Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a really fascinating look inside, well, what you might call the engine room of modern medicine.
Uh-huh.
It's the global market for biotherapeutics cell line development. We've got a 2025 report here, and our aim is to pull out the most important insights for you.
Yeah, the key numbers where the real growth is happening, the trends shaping things.
Exactly.
And just to set the stage, biotherapeutic cell line development, it's basically the foundational process for creating these stable cell lines.
Right.
Think of them like miniature factories. They produce vital medicines, therapeutic proteins, monoclonal antibodies, the stuff used to treat a whole range of chronic diseases.
So the goal is creating lines that are, what, high yield and stable.
Precisely. That's the core challenge and focus.
Yeah.
And we want to see how this whole crucial process is playing out as a global market.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The report kicks off with the global picture, and the scale here, it's already pretty substantial. For 2025, the estimate is around USD 9,462.7 million.
Nearly 9.5 billion.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The projection shows it more than doubling by 2033.
Doubling. Wow.
Yeah, reaching USD 24,802.1 million.
Okay, that translates to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 12.80% from 2025 to 2033.
12.8%.
Yeah. And CGR, it's the average annual growth over that whole period. Almost 13% tells you this field is, well, it's expanding rapidly. It's very dynamic.
And the report links this directly to a key driver, the increasing prevalence of chronic diseases globally.
Makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It really does. As you see more diabetes, cancer, autoimmune conditions, the demand for the treatments, the biotherapeutics these cell lines make, just keeps rising.
And if you think about why this matters, this entire multi-billion-dollar market, it really underpins the development of so many cutting-edge therapies.
Right.
Without the investment and the constant improvements in cell line development, that pipeline of essential drugs just wouldn't be as strong.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit because the growth isn't uniform everywhere, is it?
No, not at all.
North America is currently the biggest player. It holds over 37% of the global revenue.
37%. Okay.
Their 2025 market is estimated at USD 350.1.2 million. And the CGR is still pretty healthy, 11.5% through 2033.
Still double-digit growth. And within North America, the U.S. is, well, it's the dominant force, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Market size of USD 762.45 million in 2025, with an 11.3% CAGR.
And the report specifically flags advancements in gene editing tech as a big driver there.
Like CRISPR and things like that.
Exactly. Think of it having much sharper tools to edit the cell's DNA, making it a more efficient sort of targeted drug factory.
Gotcha. And Canada is also significant. USD 420.14 million in 2025, and actually a slightly higher CAGR, 12.3%.
Interesting. And that's linked to rising genetic disorder prevalence.
That's what the report notes, yeah. And we shouldn't forget Mexico, either projected market of USD 318.61 million in 2025, and a solid 12.0% CAGR.
Okay, so North America leads, but Europe's a strong number too, holding over 29% of the global revenue.
Yeah, their market size is around USD 244.18 million for 2025, with the CGR at 11.8%. So still a very large and steadily growing market.
Definitely. And the report breaks down Europe further, right?
It does. The UK, for instance, has a market size of about USD 461 million in 2025 and a robust 12.6% CGR. The report links that partly to a lively biotech startup scene.
Right, lots of innovation happening there. And Germany.
Germany's slightly larger in market size, USD 543.35 million, with a 12.0% CEGR, driven, it says, by new approaches in cancer immunotherapy, using the body's own immune system.
Novel cancer immunotherapies, yeah. That's a huge area. And there's significant activity elsewhere, too.
Absolutely. France, Italy, Russia, they all show substantial market sizes and a pretty decent growth rates. It's quite a diverse picture across Europe.
Each country may be focusing on slightly different aspects of biopharma development.
Seems like it. And even smaller countries like Spain, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Luxembourg, they all contribute. Their KGRs are mostly in that 10% to 12% range.
And the rest of Europe category isn't insignificant either.
No, that's still got a 10.5% CAGR, showing real breadth across the continent.
Okay, but now we get to the really rapid growth story, right? Asia Pacific, APAC.
Yes. Currently around 24% market share. That's USD 271.05 million in 2025. But the projected CAGR is the highest globally, 15.7%.
15.7%. That is moving fast.
You're not kidding. And China is a huge part of that. Their 2025 market is pegged at USD 953.84 million with a 15.2% CAGR, again linked heavily to those cancer immunotherapies surging there.
Right. Japan's also significant.
Yep, USD 313.40 million market, 14.2% CAGR.
And South Korea is another key player.
Yeah.
Yeah, using living cells for testing drug candidates, sophisticated stuff.
And India, that number seemed really high.
It is. USD 227.1 billion market, but the CAGR is a whopping 17.6%.
17.6. Wow, what's driving that?
Well, the report suggests a combination of a growing local biopharma industry, maybe government support, and just a stronger focus on developing drugs domestically. Makes sense. A lot happening there.
And it continues across the region. Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, Southeast Asia as a whole, all showing really impressive KGRs, mostly between 15% and 16.5%.
Even the rest of APAC is growing strongly at 15.5%.
Yeah, it's clear this region is becoming a major hub for this kind of development.
Okay, let's swing over to South America. Smaller share, but still growing. Over 3.8% market share, USD 359.58 million in 2025, and a healthy 13.2% CAGR.
Brazil leads the pack there. USD 153.90 million, 13.8% CAGR. The report mentions the increased use of gene editing tools like CRISPR and R&D driving that.
Okay. And Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile.
All showing solid growth too. KGR is mostly around 13% to 14%. For Argentina, they note things like better availability of advanced cell culture media, the nutrient mixes for the cells.
The consumables matter too.
Definitely. And the rest of South America adds another 12.3% AGR to the mix.
Right. Moving on to the Middle East, around 4% global share, USD 378.51 million in 2025, and a KVR of 13.3%.
Saudi Arabia is the key player there. USD 133.23 million, 13.6% CAGR. Apparently driven by demand for recombinant proteins, those engineered therapeutic proteins.
Okay. UAE and Turkey also going fast.
Yeah, 13.8% and 13.9% CAGRs, respectively. And interestingly, for Turkey, the report highlights innovation in bioreactors, those big tanks for growing cells as a factor.
The hardware side of things.
Exactly. Qatar, Egypt also contribute, and the rest of the Middle East at 12.5% CAGR.
Okay, and finally, Africa. Smaller market share, around 2.2%, USD 208.18 million in 2025.
Yeah.
The CAGR is a bit more moderate at 8.8%.
Right. South Africa is the largest market, USD 73.28 million, 9.7% CAGR.
Nigeria's growth is also noted 9.0%.
So summing up the regions, global growth, but APAC is really accelerating, isn't it?
Definitely the hotspot for growth right now.
Okay, so we've seen the map. Let's talk about the actual how. The processes involved. The report segments the market by process, and it says transfection and selection is probably the dominant part right now.
Right. And transfection, for anyone less familiar, is essentially getting foreign DNA into the cells. That's the instruction manual, telling them what biotherapeutic to make.
How do they do that?
Various ways. Liposuction uses fatty molecules. Electroporation uses electrical pulses. Sometimes they use modified viruses, viral vectors to deliver the genetic material. It's step one in turning the cell into that factory.
And it's clearly a critical step. I mean, look at that acquisition, Sartorius AG, buying Polyplus Transfection for, what was it, $2.6 billion back in March 2023?
Exactly, $2.6 billion. That kind of money tells you how vital this part of the process is considered.
But while that's dominant now, the report says single-cell cloning is the fastest-growing segment.
Yeah, and that's about isolating individual cells and then growing a whole population from just one.
Why is that important? Is it about quality?
Precisely. You want to make absolutely sure that every cell in your production run is essentially identical, genetically stable, and pumping out the exact same high-quality product. Single-cell cloning gives you that consistency and reproducibility.
Which must be crucial for, like, regulatory approval and stuff.
Absolutely critical. It ensures a stable, predictable manufacturing process. Regulators love predictability.
Okay. Now, the report also looks at how companies get this done. The CLD options cell line development. You've got in-house, outsourcing, do-it-yourself, or a hybrid model.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the outsource option currently has the biggest market share.
That makes sense. Cell line development, it's really specialized work. It needs specific expertise, expensive equipment.
Right.
So a lot of companies, maybe smaller biotechs especially, find it more efficient, maybe cheaper, to partner with specialists. Those contract development and manufacturing organizations, CDMOs.
Yeah, we hear about CDMOs a lot, but the report also notes that doing it in-house is growing rapidly.
It is, and that's driven by companies wanting full control over the whole process.
Why? What's the benefit of keeping it all under one roof?
Well, several things. You get more flexibility to optimize the cell line for your specific drug. You can ensure tighter quality control according to your own standards. And crucially, it offers better protection for your intellectual property.
Ah, keeping the secret safe.
Exactly. If
Yeah.
you've developed a really novel therapy, keeping the manufacturing process in-house can be a major strategic advantage.
Okay, so we've got the numbers, the regions, the processes, the options. What's actually pushing this whole market forward? The drivers.
Well, the report highlights a few key ones. First off, simply rising investments in biopharmaceuticals overall.
More money flowing into drug discovery and development.
Exactly. And as more money goes into finding new biologic drugs, you naturally need more cell line development to support that pipeline. It's fundamental.
Makes sense. What else?
Growing global demand for the biologics themselves. As these treatments prove effective for more conditions, more people need them. That increases demand on the production side, which starts with cell line development.
And the third one mentioned is the growing emphasis on personalized medicine.
Right. Tailoring treatments to individuals based on their genetics or specific disease profile. This often requires highly specialized biotherapeutics.
Which in turn needs more adaptable, maybe more sophisticated cell line development tech.
Precisely.
Okay, but it can't all be smooth sailing. What are the brakes on this market, the restraints?
Well, the report points to the sheer complexity of cell line engineering. It's not easy.
Right, getting cells to reliably produce these complex molecules at scale. It sounds tricky.
It really is. It takes deep scientific knowledge. You're dealing with complex biology, often hitting unexpected roadblocks. It requires a lot of troubleshooting.
And I guess that complexity leads to the other restraint mentioned, high development costs.
Yeah, they're directly linked. Creating these stable, high-performing cell lines is very R&D intensive, and that costs a lot of money.
Which could be a barrier, especially for smaller outfits or academic labs.
Definitely. Those high costs can slow things down. Finding ways to make the process more efficient and less expensive is a constant goal in the field.
So complexity and cost are challenges. Now, what about the trends shaping the future? What's emerging?
One big trend is the increasing demand for biosimilars.
Ah, the sort of generic versions of biologic drugs.
Essentially, yeah. Highly similar versions of approved biologics, usually more affordable. Developing them effectively relies heavily on efficient cell line development to match the original product's safety and efficacy.
So that's creating another source of demand.
Absolutely. And another major trend is the continued growth and expansion of those CDMOs we talked about earlier.
The outsourcing specialists.
Right. They're becoming even more central to the whole biopharma ecosystem. They offer the specialized know-how, the advanced tech, the manufacturing capacity.
Allowing the drug companies themselves to focus more on the R&D and clinical trials.
Exactly. They can concentrate on discovery and let the CDMOs handle the complexities of production. Their growth really reflects how much outsourcing is happening here.
Okay, final piece. The competitive landscape. How does that look?
The report describes it as highly competitive. You've got big global players alongside smaller regional specialists.
Who are some of the big names mentioned?
Companies like Fione Bio, Becton Dickinson, Boehringer Ingelheim, Catalent, Lonza, EMD Millipore. Quite a few well-established players. Their strength often comes from having broad product portfolios, strong distribution, and consistent innovation.
And there's consolidation happening too, right? Acquisitions.
Definitely. The report highlights a couple of recent ones. Bristol-Myers Squibb buying 2seventy Biosero. They make cancer cell therapies for around $286 million just in March 2025.
Strengthening their CAR T-cell therapy work, it looks like.
Exactly. And before that, December 2024, Roche agreeing to acquire Poseda Therapeutics. That deal could be worth up to $1.5 billion.
$1.5 billion, that's serious money.
It is. And it's aimed at boosting Roche's pipeline in oncology, immunology, neurology, bringing to Poseda's HAR-T therapies and their manufacturing tech.
So these deals really show how strategically important advanced cell therapies and the underlying development capabilities are becoming.
Absolutely. It underscores the intense competition and the race to secure cutting-edge technology in this space.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. To bring this deep dive to a close, what are the main takeaways?
Well, I think first, the sheer scale and the accelerating growth of this market is clear. It's booming.
Driven largely by that increasing need for biologic medicines worldwide.
Right. And geographically, while North America and Europe are huge, The Asia-Pacific region is where the most rapid expansion is happening right now.
We also saw there's a mix of ways companies approach this, different processes like transfection or single-cell cloning, and different models like in-house versus outsourcing to CDMOs.
Yeah, catering to different needs and strategies.
Yeah.
And the ongoing investments, those big acquisitions we just mentioned, they really highlight how dynamic and, frankly, how critical this field is to the future of medicine.
It really sets up an interesting final thought for you, the listener, doesn't it? Well, given all this projected growth, this dynamism, what innovations do you think will really shake things up next? Will it be breakthroughs in the core cell line engineering itself, or maybe advances in personalized medicine demanding new kinds of cell lines?
That's a great question. How will those scientific leaps actually reshape this multi-billion-dollar market landscape we've just explored? It's that constant interplay, isn't it, between the science and the market forces? Something definitely worth thinking about.